Welcome to Known Through Connection. I'm your host, Jess Collicott. Known Through a Connection is a podcast where we value presence over performance. Not that performance isn't important, but presence is where you build connection. And today, we get to build a connection with our next guest on episode 16. My guest today is somebody I met through a mutual friend, Maggie Thorne, at 1 Million Cups, a tech entrepreneur community here in Omaha. We grabbed coffee not long after that conversation, and he told me a story about where he came from and decisive choices he made to live his life a different way. And he has built a different life since then, an accomplished life. He's gone on to co-captain a national championship basketball team in Nebraska Wesleyan. He's built a career helping people and organizations grow. He's been an entrepreneur. He's worked at established organizations. He's soon to be a father. Congratulations. And through all of that, he's built a mindset that I think people need to hear more of and learn from him how to be a connector, a builder, and somebody that the community is better for having in it. Deion Wells-Ross, thank you for joining Known Through Connection. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jess, and what an amazing introduction. Hopefully I don't fumble it and blow it because that was awesome.
It's all you, Deion. It's all your history. So it was really fun to have Maggie connect us at 1 Million Caps, which is a great networking opportunity for those who are either in entrepreneurship or especially in tech entrepreneurship. And then it's interesting because you and I both have a passion for tech. We both have gotten into AI, and yet we both have a passion, I believe, for leadership and communication. And so we've got some similarities between us, Deion, and I really enjoyed that we have that mutual connections between us.
Yeah, I think that's why we really hit it off so well, and it seems like one coffee snowballed into something amazing. But yeah, there's definitely this synergy and mutual interest in things, and plus you're just a great human, so that helps.
I feel the same about you. You're so positive every time I interact with you, and I see you online in your social media, your LinkedIn posts. Just really enjoy your presence and the energy you give. You're fantastic.
I
So,
appreciate you too.
Deion, you've been able to do quite a few things, right? You are forming a family. You took some time to somewhat overlapped in the entrepreneurial time frame. You have experienced some well-known, nationally, globally known organizations that you've worked at.
hmm
Um, you have been co-leading, co-captain a championship team, but that's not where you started, is it?
Oh no, I
Tell,
wish
tell,
life was that linear. Oh,
yeah, I was gonna say, tell us where you started. Why was where you started different than what I just described? Where did you start out?
yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I always tell people life is not linear. At least it wasn't for me. So I grew up in the inner city. You have to kind of read in between the lines, but I just saw a lot of terrible things like just gun violence, gang violence, drugs, and really just there was a lack of leadership. We'll go back to that. So growing up, I didn't have a ton of direction. It was one of those things where I learned by just making horrible decisions. So throughout my younger years, I made a lot of bad decisions, did a lot of dumb stuff, and I went to a small university in Nebraska. When I went to college, my mindset shifted from all right, I am a person I'm an insider looking out. This is just the way it is. You kind of have to be a part of a gang or make it big and play sports or be a world-renowned musician, and then you'll be successful. But when I went to college, I moved from an insider looking out to an outsider looking in, and
Mm.
that's when I realized I don't have to just be an athlete. I don't have to make music, and that's when it began to change for me. And really, it helped broaden my horizons, meeting different people. Obviously, race and skin color is one thing, but its perspective, its culture, its geographical, all of those certain things. I was like, wow, the world is a really, really big place. So back in, I'll say 2015, 14 is when I decided like, I cannot go down the path that my environment kind of pushed me towards.
Mm. What kind of triggered that for you? What made you say, you know what, I'm gonna do something different than I grew up with, than I was immersed in, than I was modeled in? Do you remember a catalyst for kind of pushing you over the edge on that?
Absolutely. Pattern recognition. So I knew a lot of people that were around my age or older, and I just began to see the decisions they made, and they were dead end roads. Like, how many people do we know that will make it to the NBA compared to how many people we know want to make it to the NBA? It's
Mm,
like the numbers really just aren't on your side. So that was a big thing. And then as I've matured, I've realized like I want to be a phenomenal husband, a phenomenal father, and just a good human. And
mm,
the environment I grew up in that wasn't really the norm, but it doesn't mean like it couldn't be for me. So I just knew I had to turn away from everything I learned. You know, people always talk about like growth and development and learning. Not a
mm.
lot of people talk about the unlearning phase or cycle. So I had to unlearn so much and then relearn or rewire myself.
Interesting. The unlearning is, yes, that does not get talked about hardly at all. You're right. We do talk about learning, we do talk about growing, but to take yourself backwards to rewire and come forward in a different way, um, yeah, that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah. And I will say it's not like you just magically press a button and say, I'm going to rewire myself and become transform myself.
Mm,
It's a process and oftentimes it's painful. You have to let go a lot of habits, friends,
mm,
acquaintances. So it's not like it's just one thing at a time. It took years to separate myself from bad habits, bad people, everything. So
mm. Was it more about a vision of a future that was worth all the pain, or was it more wanting to live your life a certain way regardless of the cost, or both, or how would you say that?
I would say it was a combination of both. And I just knew in my heart that if I wanted something different, I had to do something differently.
Mm,
What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting different results.
mhm,
So, for whatever reason, I had enough discernment to realize like I can't go down that path. And this kind of bleeds into the next part where um yeah, I won a national championship in college. The
mhm.
timing of it is crazy. We're like literally in the heart of March Madness. We actually won
Yeah.
March Madness in
Oh,
2018. So,
that's awesome. Perfect
yeah,
time.
could
That's what we
literally perfect timing. Yeah, we it was on purpose to anybody that sees this.
inside joke. This was like 6 months overdue, this podcast episode, but yeah.
Right. But so I went to a university. I had a coach tell me, literally, I suck. I'm not good enough to play college basketball. He had
Oh,
no idea why I was still trying.
wow.
I took a major leap of faith. I quit his team, and it's rooted in I know I have a better future than this. So I took
Wow.
a risk. I walked into a coach's office in August of 2015. If you know when school starts in August. So it
Okay.
literally came
Yeah.
down to the wire. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he just said, "Dude, I'll give you a shot." I joined this team. I was living in my car or sleeping in my car, I shouldn't say living.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
parents had a house in Omaha,
Right.
but that opportunity changed my life. Like you couldn't have predicted we would go on to win a national championship. And I had walked into his office as a complete stranger.
What do you think that coach saw in you that made him say, "Hey, we're I mean, last second, yes, I will take you on." What do you think he saw?
Man, that's a really good question. I think honestly, I just had this fire, this grit, and this determination to make it work. Like how many people I've sent hundreds of coaches emails, including him, and I walked up into his office and said, "Hey, I'm Deion Wells-Ross. I'm the guy that's been emailing you. Like, and he'll say I forced my way in, but
Yeah,
really it was desperation.
you showed initiative. You may feel like it was desperation. I think on the other side of things, it shows initiative and passion is how I would see that. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable sharing that coach's name?
Yeah, his name is Dale Wellman, and
Awesome.
yeah, he's been a stud at Nebraska Wesleyan, and just one of those things, like things worked out better than I could have imagined for not only me but the team and him. So it's just truly one of those like Cinderella stories.
Yeah, I think there probably could be a whole episode just on your coach about being somebody who makes a huge impact on somebody else's life by doing something that maybe on paper doesn't make sense, but taking a risk and taking a
Hmm.
potential and what you see in somebody, um, and seeing them become a leader in that venue of the basketball team and then in the community they live in, which you're
You're
saying,
spot on.
yeah.
Yeah, and well, and it's a testament, it only takes one person to believe in you, one
Mm,
person to say yes, and it can change your life.
mm.
You get this, Jess, but like as an entrepreneur, it's hard. You hear no a lot, and it just takes that one person. So keep going if you see this.
Yes, awesome. What would you say if there's somebody who's kind of on the verge of like fighting their way through, coming through a similar background or a background where they want to live a different life, but they're going back and forth. You know, you like you said, it's not linear, and it's not. I'm not trying to say go back and forth, but they're fighting the battle, right? And like you said, it's not linear. You have moments where you're moving forward and then moments where you fall backward and there's pain and there's hurt. What's a word of encouragement you might have for that person who is in the middle of that journey right
Mhm.
now, middle of that hardness, and they're like not quite sure if they're gonna get the life that they're hoping for?
I love that question. So it's twofold. For one, it's having anchors in the future. I talk about strengths a lot. My number one strength is futuristic. So for me, it was almost like going into the future and then coaching myself or like casting my anchor. And
Mm,
I just said, hell or high water, no matter what comes, this is the direction I'm going. So fighting and pushing, even when it's hard, it's a very lonely journey. I will say that, but figure out who your people are.
mm,
It's better to have one amazing person than 10 mediocre. So you
mm.
just need that one person that can hold you accountable, that sees your potential. For me, my spouse, my wife has been that person. And then the other side is just like maybe I'm overly optimistic, but you know this, Jess. January 1st, 2024, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. Life dropped a huge bomb on me. Trust me, that was not a part of the plan. And it's like I went from being a college athlete to I can't run, I can't jump. The left side of my body just does not work how it used to or how it should. And that was a very I'll say defining moment for me because
Mm.
that's when I decided like I'm not going to allow this to end my life. There's still hope, there's still future. There's still a future. And this sounds so morbid, but I said MS is better than dead. Um I read a quote years ago, Jess. I'll get off my soapbox,
You're
but
good.
it said that um the richest place in the world is the graveyard. And
Wow.
I probably shared that with you. I was like, what in the world does that mean? And then I
Mm,
kept reading, and it just talked about how so many people take their talent, their dreams, their potential, their fight to the grave. And when
mm,
I was diagnosed with MS, I said, I'm not taking anything to the grave.
mm.
I'm letting out all my potential while I can. So I don't know if that answered your question, but those are
It
my
does.
thoughts.
It does, and thank you for bringing up MS. I was going to let you bring that up if that was something you would talk about. I think I feel like MS doesn't know quite who it met when it met Dion. In that you've got fight and passion front in your heart, and I don't mean that like um, you're this really hard person, but I mean like you just emanate decisiveness to be positive and uh, take the higher path. And I just see that from you. And I love that, even with a diagnosis that for some people would maybe send them in a little bit of a spiral, um, you've chosen to be very positive about it and to see it as another piece of adversity in your life that just adds to the story of how to live the life that you want to live, the life that you choose to live,
Hmm.
regardless of the cards that are dealt to you.
Absolutely. And kind of reminds me of this equation I made. I call it the adversity equation. It's E plus P equals R. Experiences are going to be positive and negative. Like there is no human that has ever lived that didn't have positive experiences and negative.
Mm,
So the E, you really can't change it. E plus P, the P is perspective. You can have a positive or negative experience, and that's what it comes down to. Those are going to produce your results.
mm,
And for me, I'm like, I usually always have a positive perspective.
mm,
And the MS is like a good example. Like, yeah, horrible experience,
mm.
but my perspective on it was positive, so it produced positive results.
I really like that equation, and it's so true in that, I mean, I've definitely feel it, and I think most people feel it. Life plays you cards, and you don't get to choose always what those cards are, um, but you get to choose how you play those cards and,
Mm,
um, the way you view that. And that does not mean, going back to some previous episodes, there is going to be grief. There is going to be sadness. There is going to be loss, and you may have to emotionally navigate that. But to be able to do that in a healthy way and then pick yourself back up, and I don't mean by yourself. Look, have connection, have community, find the people who are going to fill your cup. And bring yourself back to a place where, Dion, like you're describing, you can respond to the cards you've been dealt in the best way possible. Um, I love that.
yeah, no, nailed it.
Dion, when you have you always been a leader, or did that really surface during your time in the basketball team?
It's funny. I would say I have always been a leader. I just never realized it. Like, thinking back to my childhood, I've always hated bullies. I've always hated when people were like taken advantage of. And I guess, have a bad habit of sticking up for people. And I just hate when wrong happens. So in a way, I have always been a leader. I just didn't know it. No one ever sat me down and said, dude, you would be a great leader, or you have this leadership ability. So sports helped amplify it.
That's awesome. I love that you can look back and recognize that you had values that you strongly believed in, and maybe you didn't quite have the language then, who knows, but you had values that you felt very strongly about how people should be treated, how people should um, be cared for, and so you had strong values, but it wasn't molded enough to where you fully knew how to express it to maybe guide and lead others. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Like I said, I've always stood up for people. And one of my top strengths is command. It's just
Okay.
about having presence and stepping up. Like when stuff hits the fan, I've always been like super cool, calm, and collected. I don't go too high or I don't get too low. I try to just stay here. And that's a good leadership characteristic because when people's emotions escalate, I can say, just breathe. They're like, we'll be okay, you know? So I have always had that. I just never really understood how to apply it or that it was true leadership.
As you kind of look back at that time being a co-captain of a championship team, were there things that either was shaped in you or that um, kind of was refined from your childhood and your experiences that enabled you to be that co-captain to lead the team? What do you think made that team so special? And what attributes did you as a leader really want to bring out in the team?
Yeah, I love that. This is like a trifecta of answers. The
Yeah.
first thing, it starts with my coach.
Okay.
Dale was incredible. He had this philosophy that was called freedom within structure. So we had structure, like we knew our continuity, but he also gave us freedom to do what we did best. So if I look at our national championship team, I'm 6'4", but I rebounded like I was 6'8", right? I led the conference in rebounding. So he knew like, Dion, we need this rebound. Go get the ball. I was going to go get it. Or our point guard, Nate Shimonitz, when it came down to like we need a buzzer beater or like a basket, he came in the clutch every single time, right? So
Mm,
everyone had their own freedom within this structure. That is what made us great.
mm,
Nobody could quite figure us out, and we had all the right pieces.
mm.
For me as a leader, it goes back to command. Another one of my strengths is self-assurance. I'll
Okay.
never forget the conference championship. We were literally down by 18 points with 10 minutes left,
Oh,
and
wow.
one of our starters was in foul trouble. Yeah, so big deficit. I'll never forget this. My coach called a timeout, and I don't have any recollection of this. We came back and won that game, and the president at the time, Fred, came up to me and said, Dion, I knew we were going to come back and win that game. I'm like, President Oles, why do you say that? And he said, you had fire in your eyes and smoke coming out of your ears during that timeout. And
Awesome.
I don't, yeah, it's just like leadership jumping in. And I knew that we were better than that team. We had already beat them twice that year. So something ignited and it sparked us to come back. And that's the takes me to the third point. I had a unwavering belief in our teammates and their ability and what they brought to the table. So I remember like in the final four, our shooting guard, Jack, was just cold in the first half. And he was passing up shots everyone knew he could make. At halftime, I said, "Bro, shoot the ball. You are our best shooter." The second half, he hit some of the biggest shots of his entire career, right? So it's just having that unwavering belief in people.
That's amazing. So having structure, passion, seeing that you can do it, and belief in your team members and the people next to you.
Absolutely. And really, I would say it comes down to knowing yourself as a leader. Like what works for me won't work for everyone else.
Mm,
But those have just been my ways of leading and like making an impact. Some
mm,
people are more like relationship focused or empathetic, you know. So
mhm. Yeah, it's interesting that, right? We talk about leadership, and yet there are individual expressions of leadership. Yes, there are characteristics of what a good leader generally looks like, but the expression of that can be very unique
mhm.
to the individual, right? Do you find that to be true?
I agree with you 100%. I have a friend that always tells me you can't buy integrity. So
Mm,
if there's like one through line every leader should have, it's integrity. But how their way of leadership and the way of leading and expressing it is going to vary person to person. But integrity is one of those things like you cannot lack as a leader.
mm. What is something that you and I'm set well, what is something that you carry into your leadership consulting or as you work in more corporate life that you have found has made a difference in the environments you work?
I would say honestly, building people up. The
Mm,
world is so negative. People are torn down all the time. And
mm,
it's like, man, a smile is free. Like having good energy or interacting with someone makes the world of a difference, whether they're a stranger or your spouse or your friend. So kindness really does pay off.
mm,
Um, I feel like I could go on a long tangent here, but I'll say like the free stuff is honestly what makes the biggest difference, where it's like noticing, hey, you got your hair done, your haircut looks great,
mm,
or you dyed your hair. Like people light up when you notice those little things about them. So treating people like a human.
mm. Making connection through noticing things about people and helping them feel seen. That feels familiar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. Connect. Yep. Knowing people through connection.
That's
So,
awesome. That's super. If you could go back to young Dion, who was just thinking about maybe living a different life, and here you are, well accomplished, and yet so much to experience as a new dad soon. What would you say as a word of encouragement to yourself to take that journey?
Ooh, one, stay the course. Like life is going to be hard. It's going to drop bombs on you, and you just have to keep going no matter what. And I would also tell my younger self, like, this sounds so cliche, but pretty much you can do anything you put your mind to within reason.
Mm.
Like, don't think you can jump off a house and fly. Like, that's impossible, right? But working in the tech space, having a professional career, those things are possible. And I grew up in an environment where you just didn't see it. It wasn't super common.
Yeah.
And I don't say this to like take shots at anyone, but it's like, our class president from high school works in tech support, which is not a bad thing. Don't misunderstand me. But at the same time, just think about, I know a lot of people, their class president went on to be an attorney, a doctor, a successful something, you fill in the blank, right? So they aimed a lot higher.
Mm,
In my environment, the ceiling was just pretty low. And
gotcha.
yeah, I look across the board and I'm like, all my friends, people I went to high school with, they do okay, but it's like no one really aims for the moon.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's so interesting, Dion, how you didn't have that modeled for you or really an example set, and yet you decided you're gonna go for it anyways. You're gonna try it anyways. You're gonna maybe bounce around a little bit, get knocked around a little bit, but you're gonna make it. And you have. You made it, Dion. And you have done so well for yourself. You have made an impact and a name in the Omaha community for sure. And we're the community is grateful for you. And I know your championship team is grateful for you, and obviously your coach was grateful for you. And so you've done so much, and it's really fun to consider you a friend and to be connected to you.
Oh, I appreciate that, Jess. Your words really mean a lot. And I'll say, honestly, life really changed when I stopped making it about myself. Like for
Mm,
me, it's how can I make the world a better place? How can I add to people and build them up? And people always think, oh, it's money or like gifting someone something. It's like the free things are what make the biggest impact, like telling someone they look nice or you noticed they're putting in additional effort.
mm,
And the other side of that is like assuming positive intent. But for me, I'm like, you just never know what someone is going
yeah,
through. And some of the biggest battles people win are fought in silence, just the things you never know about, you'll never hear about. And it's like maybe if you put yourself in someone else's shoes, it's like you would just understand like why they can't get out of bed or why they can't show up. So just have grace and understand like life is hard for everyone.
don't I take that for granted. And so to have empathy and compassion, and like you said, assume positive intent on where somebody may be. I so second that. I second that. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, seriously, you just never know. And it's like you probably don't see it in real time, but those compliments, the kindness, being respectful can make or break someone's day, literally. So be the person of light for other people. That's my thing.
That's awesome, Dion. Um, Dion, how can people connect with you? What would be the best way to connect with you?
Honestly, to reach out on LinkedIn, I'm active on Instagram and Facebook. Those are a little more private now, just with baby boy coming and it's like protecting him and family. But it's like I'm a human. I'm not popular enough to say I don't respond to DMs, and I just really love to connect, whether it's over coffee or virtually, just like we did. Just like man, we went and grabbed coffee, two strangers, and here we are. Like you just
Yeah.
never really know from what can stem from a connection.
Yes, you never know what a connection will bring. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Dion. Thank you for sharing time with us. Thank you for sharing a bit of your story. I know there's so much more depth to everything that we've talked about. And so hopefully people connect with you and get to hear more of your story and see more of your journey. as you became a father and even more established in the community that we're in. Thank you so much for spending time on Known Through Connection. Thank you for sharing your story.
No, thank you so much for having me, Jess, and huge shout out to you and what you're doing. This is what's making the world better. This is what's adding to the community. So keep it up, and hopefully more people can be known through connection.
Awesome. Thank you, Deion. Thank you. All right, Known Through Connection community. Thank you for getting to know Deion just a little bit. Thank you for getting to know his heart, his mind, to know that you can do something different with your life if you want to. And I would say also learn from the example of his coach, where through a simple connection, you can change somebody's life. Somebody can suddenly have the belief that they can succeed and be successful and live life in an exceptional way like Deion has. Find those connections, find your champions, be a champion for somebody else, and stay connected. Thank you, everybody.